Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I, Rohit Agarwal, on behalf of SST ADMS Next, welcome you all for this exclusive and exciting fireside chat from technical debt to business agility, redefining application value in the digital era. Today's discussion, we will explore how leading enterprises are breaking free from technical debt, accelerating digital transformation, and redefining agility to deliver true business value. As our distinguished panel of experts will share their experiences, insights, and strategies that can help enterprises navigate this transformation successfully. We are honored to be joined by an exceptional line of visionary leaders. For today's event, we have Shobna Satyamurthy, Vice President, Enterprise Architecture and User Experience from Xylem, Laura Han, Vice President, IT for Americas, Global Commercial Field Operation and Marketing from Johnson Control, Rao Panchamurthy, Worldwide Leader, AWS Mainframe Modernization from AWS, Greg Rivera, Vice President for Product from Cast Software. Joining us for opening remarks is Rohit Madhok, Senior Vice President and Global Head for Large Deals SST. And this event will be moderated by Anjali Chhabra, Head of Strategic Solutions North America and Global Practice Head for SST ADMS Next. Before we get started, just a few quick housekeeping notes to ensure a smooth event. Please keep your microphones muted at all times during the event. We encourage you to share your questions in the chat window throughout the session. We'll address the selected questions during the Q&A segment towards the end of the event. This session is being recorded for your future reference and a clip will be available on MyTube. With that, let's dive right in. To set the tone for the exciting conversation, I would like to invite Rohit Madhok to deliver the opening remarks. Rohit, over to you.
No, thank you, Rohit. And as I said, very happy, excited to be, uh, especially opening, this wonderful session. We have a great lineup of panelists over here. So I am really looking forward to hearing their views on a topic which I think any one of us who belongs to the IT and software industry should have come across on a consistent basis, right? So the way I look at it, Rohit, Anjali, and all the panelists, is that um, tech debt continues to be one of the biggest issues which plague almost every enterprise, right? And I choose my words with care. These are things which uh, do land up in some shape or form in either a slowdown in the way those enterprises are able to operate. So they really start impacting your agility, or they start driving up your costs because the overall maintenance costs and your operation and run cost starts going up quite significantly, right? So I think this is a very uh, prominent problem which most enterprises do encounter. That's one. Second is, as we all know, right, it takes time to build up your overall stack. And with every passing year, with every passing, many of these systems start getting. Can I request people to be on mute, please, if you're not speaking? Yeah, thank you. So, many of these systems also evolve over time. There is a lot of legacy tech debt which starts getting built up with every passing year, right? And that really becomes challenging while, you are solving the problem of making it feature rich and really driving the business, but the tech debt keeps accumulating and it obviously slows down the pace at which that organization really wants to go to the market, right? So these are very, very genuine challenges. Uh, that said, I believe this whole situation, the intent of whether it's a CIO organization or the business users who are driving it, the intent is always there to either modernize the stack or figure out ways to really enhance the whole end-to-end process flow, right? The intent is always there. Those programs may see the day of light, but I think many of us, and I would love to hear what the panelists have to say, have also seen enough number of scenarios where either these just get sidelined or they are seen as programs which can be so draining on the organization, that there does become a lot of hesitation to really take these programs forward. But what management decisions could not do, I think technology disrupts, right? So the way I look at it now, whether we like it or not, the post AI world, or really the agentic era which we have entered or kind of entering, which will only take off further from here, is really going to be that driving force which will nudge you pretty strongly, in the direction of modernization, in a direction where you are as an enterprise forced to think very, very strongly about real value which can come out of these transformation initiatives. It will drive you to do those work, reduce the significant tech debt, especially via the modernization route, right? Which can take different shape and form. So it is, as I said, a problem which is front and center of uh, a lot of organizations' ability to really add significant value to the business in which they are. And this whole AI driven push will accelerate it significantly. So I am personally very keen to see, we have a very diverse set of panelists over here, what they are seeing as leaders within their own organizations, and then how they see it playing out in conjunction with their own customers, right? So I'll not keep my opening remark too long. I will hand it over to Anjali, who leads the ADMS charter for Tech Mahindra. So over to you, Anjali, to take it forward with the rest of the panelists.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rohit, for setting up the stage very rightly for this entire conversation. And without kind of taking any more time, I think I'll dive deep into the panel conversations and the questions. So, Shobana, let me actually start with you on this conversation. Specifically, you are sitting at a spot where in your role where there is technical debt is a concern, but many a times it is, whenever there is a modernization initiative, it is also seen as a cost initiative, that there will be a lot of money that we have to spend, whether it is worth it, whether it is not, those type of conversations. So in that type of situation, there is a level of tangible issues that the business is seeing because of technical debt. But there is a lot that is not directly seen, but actually indirectly impacting the business. How do you kind of, in those conversations, how do you communicate that kind of real cost of tech debt to a business person or a business user to really position the modernization program in your organization? So that would be the question I'll start with.
Thank you, Anjali, and good morning, everyone. Good to be here. Happy Friday. It's a great question, especially for an industrial organization like Xylem. You tend to accumulate technical debt. When it comes to creating business cases for modernization, asking people for money to modernize a legacy system, I almost always rely on metrics. One of the top metrics that works is time to market. If you're in technology, if you're ever in technology, or you are a manager of technology, tech debt slows down your velocity. And I have seen teams where we don't even measure velocity, right? Because there is a process debt. It always starts with just measuring stuff like your velocity, your predictability, and that is a really good metric to take to your higher ups. The second would be cost of change. Again, needless to explain, in a legacy system, integrating a new data source or creating a new screen or creating a new user experience is expensive. And that is another metric. which most organizations do not track, but they should be. So putting those systems in place and tracking them and measuring them is a good way to showcase the problem. The third one, but not the last, would be opportunity cost. Let's say out of your 100 team members, 60% of your team is managing a heavyweight legacy system, just keeping the lights up. That's 60% of new functionality not being developed for your customers, right? So essentially, the organization is paying to stand still, just maintaining stuff while our competitors are moving far ahead. And Rohit, as you mentioned, there are disruptors in the market thanks to AI, thanks to open source and startups. Our time to market is not measured by our competitors. The expectations of our customers come from startups. So organizations do get left behind if they carry a lot of tech debt. I would use those three metrics to present to people above me.
Absolutely. No, spot on, Shobna. Very, very interesting perspective, and absolutely right. You talked about the time to market, the cost of change, and opportunity loss, which all are really relevant. If the business users have to look at it from their lens, they will be very easily able to relate to that. So that actually brings me to my very next question. It actually leads to the next question as well. And I'll keep coming for some questions. I'll go direct to the panelists. Some question I'll take more views, but please feel free to, if for any particular question you want to share any further input. But right now, just taking the lead from what Shobna you said, that yes, there is a way to explain to business that how this technical debt is impacting the business agility and all that. But I'm coming to you, Laura, now, that even when we have those metrics and those data, there might be a very diverse set of applications. And when we look at the modernization, there can be like certain applications which you are thinking to modernize, certain applications you are planning to retire, certain you are planning to replace, rehost, refactor. There are so many of those strategies. And I'm sure when you have to do those prioritizations and look at what are the key parameters or what are the drivers that help you take that decision forward, that what should be my short-term, medium-term, long-term applications to fit in the modernization roadmap? Are there any specific business signals that you again look for? So just please share your perspective that how do you take that forward?
Absolutely. It's a great question. So I'll say hello to everyone. Happy Friday. I think I'll take it in about three parts as well. I think there are two criteria that in IT we can really own, right, and help clarify for the business. And I think I would start with, what is our job as IT or the technology team to really protect the company? And those two that I think everyone should think about is, one is risk, and really looking at your application landscape. Anything that has a risk profile to me is like table stakes, right? Whether it's cyber risk, operational risk, having a framework that you show repeatedly, even if your business isn't signaling anything. Risk is a great way to lay out a set of facts if you feel a certain application should be replaced or drawn down, or if the business is asking you to replace something but you can't quite get alignment, and maybe the risk profile is just fine, right? Maybe that wouldn't be money well spent. So I find that risk is a great pillar to have in your hand. The second one is technical debt itself, which we have a responsibility to observe and manage and track. And I know Shobana talked about it, but I'll take it one step further and say, build a technical debt framework. I think when we say technical debt, a lot of people interpret that And it's really helpful to decide what it is. So it could be end of life software. It could be, I lack the ability to upgrade things. Maybe I'm having difficulty attracting and retaining talent who know how to work on it. Whatever it might be, come up with what you are going to classify as equal to technical debt. So it's not ambiguous. And that also gives you, again, a set of facts. When it comes to the business, it's tricky, right? They can sometimes just decide they love things or don't like things. And that is all about, knowing what their strategy is and why they're bringing that to you. I think it's important to talk to them about adoption. They might have big ideas, but how are we going to drive adoption of that new tool versus adoption of what they have? Going out and looking at what's in the marketplace together. I think to the point about startups, it's absolutely like viral out there, and the sales calls are everywhere. So I think just really it's tricky to have the right business signals, but I think building your relationship and being at the table with them all the time. So it's always a business and IT dialogue about where they want to go, what they like about their current tools, what they don't like about their current tools, and then merging that with your risk and your tech debt and the cost of moving. I think if you can get all four of those going, you can make the right decision together.
Oh, thank you so much, Laura. Very, very rich perspective there as well. And yeah, that's really setting the tone for me. Every time I'm asking a question, it's automatically kind of setting the tone for the next question. So for the next question, Rao, let me come to you. You come from the hyperscaler AWS, and journey to cloud has been like at the front end center of lot of modernization initiatives, right? Like we talk modernization. In between, there was a era when modernization was almost synonymous of journey to cloud, while later, like everybody, little bit kind of that no, modernization can be beyond cloud as well. There can be, I can still have a on-premise application which I want to modernize to newer technologies and things like that. But journey to cloud is still at the front end center of a lot of modernization initiatives. Now, cloud adoption typically many a times it is seen as a cost optimization initiative as well. However, and we very strongly believe, and a lot of us, I think, would agree with that cloud adoption is way beyond cost optimization. It is about business agility. It is about better user experience, customer experience, new revenue models. So there can be a lot that can be derived. So what is your perspective, Rao? And when you go and speak with the customers and the community, how do you kind of set that yeah, it is beyond just IT cost optimization. There is a lot more of business value derived from journey to cloud.
Yeah, good question, Anjali. So hello everyone, my name is Rao, and good morning and happy Friday. I have the privilege to lead the legacy modernization, especially legacy in the context of the mainframe, AS400, HP nonstop. There are so many legacy systems I can name. By working with the customers across the worldwide, just to jump into the question, Anjali, most of the conversations from the IT ops perspective, it all starts with TCO, cost of operations, and what does it take to run my on-prem data centers, and what would it look like if I migrate to, let's say, another cloud service provider, which in this case is AWS. And we always try to do the business case, ROI, and migrations, but most of the projects doesn't get approved just based on the cost. It actually requires us to kind of think beyond the business, the cost. Did you guys lose me or?
Uh, your your picture is slightly frozen, Rao, but we can hear you.
Oh, okay. So I can just move on. So there are
Yes.
three other areas. There are three other areas other than the cost that we would be focusing on. Number one, we already talked, as Shobna and Laura mentioned, the agility is the number one. How faster we can deliver to deliver to the business, and by moving to the cloud, by reducing the cost, am I still improving my agility? And what are the new ways I'm optimizing my end-to-end application so that I can deliver faster to the customers? If the current monolith application is delivering, let's say, 10 releases a year, could I do 50? And what are the different best practices, modern development practices I have to improve on top of the existing cloud migration? If you just do a lift and shift, you probably will save the cost, but you will not get the agility benefits out of it. You have to rethink your business and what are the best practices, whether it is CI/CD or whatever, to introduce for the scale in and scale out models. You can come up with as many numbers to improve your agility. Number one. Number two, innovation. Innovation is basically we talked about the startups and all, right? Many of these organizations which has built Fortune 1000 organizations over the last 30 to 50 years, they all have different experiences they built for their customers to acquire new customers, retain new customers, and do the day-to-day business operations. But if you do a cloud first and cloud born mobile only startups, is giving a better user experience. And how do you innovate so that you retain your customers? I know you are the number one in the market, but would you be able to retain your position by providing those legacy experiences? And how do you innovate your customer experience to acquire new customers, retain new customers, so that you improve your revenue models? The third, but not the least, this is the new wording in the innovation we call as a agentification. As we start talking about Gen AI and agents changing the future of where the IT technologies are modernizing and migrating, would you be ready to integrate these new agents into your workflows so that you can actually optimize and provide better customer experiences? So if you're running in the legacy technologies in the monolithic nature of this 30-year-old platforms, how do you start thinking about how do I improve my agility, and how do I measure in the KPIs about number of releases I did before migration and post migration? And these are all the KPIs that you have to show to the customer. And what is my customer experience? What is net promoter score? And what is the customer retention rate? Am I acquiring the customers faster? And is my revenue channels better than the previous ones? And how am I operating in the marketplaces? And the number three is agentification and competing with the startups. And are we ready for that next gen move? And these are all the areas that we should be thinking about, not just about the cost optimization, but even though that is a table stakes, it's obviously business case and ROIs always have to be there. But these are all the things that we should be educating and empowering our business to make the right decisions.
No, absolutely, Rao. Thank you so much for that perspective. And before I move to the next question, I think cloud is a subject. I think I should go around the table and maybe Shobna, Laura, and Greg, all three of you. So Shobna, again, starting with you, because you are on that corner of my screen. So I'm kind of just going in that order. So how do you look at like at Xylem, the whole cloud adoption strategy, how much it is associated with IT cost optimization versus the real business benefits, and what is your I would say Xylem's perspective on that whole thing? And I'll come to Laura and Greg, both of you, with the same question. So yeah, Shobna, please go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, that was a great response, Rao. As far as we are concerned, in Xylem, a lot of our applications are mission critical, right? So there are certain regulations, customer requirements that we have to meet. Certain applications of ours cannot run in the cloud. It needs to be air gapped inside our customers' data centers. So there are places where cloud is not even an option for us. But some of our customer bases, we use cloud extensively, and we are AWS partners. We have a lot of our applications using AWS as well. Personally, I feel things that are table stakes in today's world, like uptime or scalability or elasticity, instead of our teams spending time and energy on building those into our independent systems, I'm a big proponent of just stick to what your core competency is. And if something is not your core competency, let somebody else who knows how to do it better do it. And that's the philosophy we follow. Of late, cloud first adoption, we are seeing quite a bit of cloud first adoption within our company as well as with our customers. But then, like I said, a lot of it depends on how mission critical or how secure or how regulated that particular functionality is.
Yeah, very interesting perspective, Shobhana. And Laura, from your side at Johnson Controls, how are you looking at the whole cloud adoption journey to cloud strategy, and what are some of the driving factors behind that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say we don't have a mandate. I think similar to Shobhana, it's kind of on a case by case basis. I do think there's the case to make with the business, right? What we see is helping them understand we're trying to improve stability and performance. I think those are the two talking points I use quite a bit because they really dislike instability, right? That is definitely a point that you can always come together on. Is it's disruptive to them, and then we have to bring to the table what approaches we use to resolve instability. And sometimes it takes a little bit of getting them comfortable with the fact that, AWS has outages, Microsoft has outages, Google has outages, like that's going to happen. But we don't really have a lot of control over those situations. So you do have to help them understand that a little bit, but generally stability and performance should be better. I think the one thing to keep in mind is you can still have a cost problem on the cloud if you don't know how to manage that. And so I do think it is important to, build up the right team that has the experience and skill set to evaluate what tools you're using in the cloud and how you're consuming cloud services. That's an important thing to keep in mind on the cost side of it.
No, thank you so much, Laura. Very, very interesting. And Greg, in fact, the next question also is for you in the panel conversation. But before that, do you want to share a little bit on the cloud and the whole adoption of cloud as one of the core modernization strategies that enterprises are using? What is your perspective, your viewpoint on that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Anjali, everyone. Really nice to be here today. But yeah, cloud is a very significant part of our business. For those of you that are not familiar, CAST, we're a software company, and we have technology that performs what's called software mapping and intelligence. And we work very closely with the big cloud providers like AWS, and our mutual clients are using the technology to better understand their software so that they can more accurately and rapidly transform it to get it to the cloud. But kind of bringing it back to this concept of technical debt, one of the barriers to sometimes adopting cloud in an optimal or cloud native fashion is the tech debt that's building up. To give you a little bit of context, because I think this is helpful to kind of frame why this is a challenge, is we recently discovered that global tech debt has just hit 61 billion work days of effort. This is based on a study we recently did. To put that into context, if everyone watching today and every developer worldwide stopped what they were doing to work on tech debt, we'd all finish up around the year of 2034. And this is based on analyzing tens of thousands of applications, 10 billion plus lines of code. So it's impractical to believe we could eliminate all technical debt. That's just not practical. But that's also why tech debt, in my opinion, is very aptly named. It has a lot of similarities to financial debt. Just like financial debt, you have good debt, like your home mortgage, right? That helps you, build credit. But then there's also bad debt, like carrying a high credit card balance. That reduces your credit score. It's very similar in software. And in the domain of software, though, the trick, just going back to some of the comments that Laura was making, is differentiating between that good or acceptable, tech debt that's not going to negatively impact the business. It's not going to slow you down from modernizing or moving to the cloud, versus the bad tech debt that actually slows down innovation, impedes agility, and that's going to require obviously mapping software to prioritize where's that bad tech debt and focusing teams on where to realize the highest ROI. So, yeah.
No, very, very nice. And I really love that the way you explained with the bad and good financial debt, very interesting perspective. So now the next question is actually for you, Greg, because when Rohit spoke in the beginning, he spoke about uh, how the emerging tech is disrupting this whole IT space in general, but modernization also is at the front and center of that. We are talking about a lot of AI-driven agentic engineering practices, whether it is assisted development, quality engineering, operations, everything assisted, Gen AI, agentic driven. How do you see that is impacting the whole modernization? Specifically, you are at an organization which provides software that helps organizations realize the problems and the issues and the real tech debt sitting in their organizations within a lot of applications. How do you see AI and agentic actually disrupting the whole modernization journeys? Some of them are known, some we really want your perspective that how are you looking at it, Greg?
Sure. Well, quite simply, AI is going to dramatically speed up application modernization and tech debt remediation. We're already starting to see it. And if it's done well, this will also increase innovation and business agility. At least that's the goal. However, AI cannot do this alone, especially for large, complex, legacy enterprise software systems comprising millions of lines of code, which, as we all know, are the ones often running major businesses. And basically the probabilistic nature of Gen AI means that it's using a lot of guesswork on how to make changes. And the context window is, at least today, not nearly large enough to handle the size of these systems to understand millions of lines of code. So it needs help. It needs deterministic data and proper architectural context so that it could more accurately make changes. And this is kind of where our software mapping and intelligence technology comes in. It can feed Gen AI tools with this context. And let me give you a really quick example. So we recently looked at just one simple task during modernization of a Java e-commerce application. The task was replacing all of the calls to a deprecated method. So we asked an LLM and an AI agent to perform the task and identify all the affected transactions afterwards that would require testing because there were changes made. And we ran this task several times. Each time, the agent made different changes. And at best, it replaced only half of the calls that needed to change, and it never really managed to identify the affected transactions that need to be tested. Now,
Wow.
when we repeated the same tasks on the Java e-commerce application, but this time providing the agent with software intelligence data and architectural context, the results were dramatically different. In every run, the agent consistently made all of the necessary method call replacements, and it also correctly identified all the transactions that required testing. So what this showed is that the promise of AI is awesome, but it still needs help in the form of deterministic data to be successful at certain tasks like automating remediation, especially of very large, complex software systems.
Oh, that is very, very interesting, Greg. That re-emphasizes that whole aspect of that retrieval augmented generation and not just open Gen AI based decisions, but really driven with the context. And that is very, very interesting. Now, I would slightly shift to a slightly different question, and Shobana, it is again coming to you. So the application value, right? More at the front end, center, and everywhere of modernization, it is applications, right? And traditionally, typically, an application is measured by, oh, is the uptime good? Is the application has 99.999% availability? What is the cost of running operations on this application? If the cost is not very high and the application is extremely stable, high uptime, it's a good application, right? That was like a traditional way. But now the KPIs are changing, right? Because the moment you bring the whole business value perspective into it, the application value is not driven by how stable the application is or what is the cost of operations, but a lot of other parameters. When you look at application key KPIs, what are some of the other KPIs, Shobana, that you think through from the application standpoint that are to be measured to really decide whether the application falls in a tech debt bucket or not? Some very hardcore application KPIs. Shobana, you are on mute.
I'm sorry. Well, great question. And I think Laura sort of touched on it in her previous answer. Well, let me speak for Xylem. Our applications are mission critical. So uptime to us is not a differentiator. It's table stakes. Our applications have to be up. And I guess that's true for a lot of other mission critical applications as well. But when it comes to measuring value, the first one I would say is business impact that our application has on our customers. We have applications that helps our customers improve their operational efficiency gains or cost savings or predictive maintenance of their critical infrastructure. So that, to me, that's the core metric of which we measure how important or critical an application is. It is the business impact that we have on our customers. Speed and user experience would be next, because again, we discussed that quite a bit. Our users and customers are not just influenced by us and our competitors, they are consistently being influenced by just the outside world, right? Things that we used to take our phones and search, probably now a voice query, and there is an agent that's intelligently responding to you. Applications that keep up or that are capable of adapting to this, rapidly changing user base, that's again a measure of criticality of our application. Again, I already touched on adaptability. That is too, with the amount of data that is hitting us to make decisions in our application space. If somebody tells me that here is an application, but it takes 3 weeks for us to integrate a new data source, and well, that's a red flag, right? That is a technical debt, because we're talking about technical debt here. So yeah, I would measure an application's viability. Uptime is just table stakes. It's business impact. It's how speed can we deliver it, how adaptable the user experience is, and how adaptable the application is in itself.
No, very, very interesting, Shobana. And you brought up a very, very interesting element around data, right? And one of the conversations I remember with one of our esteemed customers, and we were talking about the application modernization space itself. And because you touched on the topic, and I really, really caught on to a phrase that the applications cannot be system of records. In the modern era, in the digital era, they have to become system of intelligence for me. And that's really one of the other core driving factor for a lot of these modernization initiatives, that how do we consume all that data in a much more effective way. So no, very, very, very interesting perspective. And with that, Laura, let me again completely change a topic a little bit. We spoke about the always that balance between where tech debt elimination is seen as a cost initiative and then you have to somehow explain the value or the loss, the cost being or the money being lost due to tech debt to the business to get some of these projects funded.
I don't know if he heard me. I can't even listen to his answer if he answered.
Pradeep, you have to go on mute. Sorry, I'm very sorry. That tells us people multitask. But yeah. So coming to you, Laura, with a question is that while okay, there is a model where you say that yeah, I need X million dollars or so much money to fund my modernization initiative. But then there can be, we are being on this side of the word, being on the SI side, we are seeing some of the very differentiated models that we are also proposing and customers are also expecting, which can be like things like self-funding models or some risk reward or some revenue like revenue sharing or gain sharing type of models. So just wanting your perspective, Laura, not necessarily just from the perspective of Johnson Control, but overall the way you are seeing this industry. What are some of the models that can actually help enterprises where they partner with a SI or a vendor or someone that can help them eliminate this tech debt without actually seeing so much hit on the capital to be invested on this?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'm still a student of this, just to be totally honest with you. I think it takes a lot of conversations. I just want to say, first of all, modernization competes with run, but it also competes with grow. And that's probably where some of these options live. It's a tension between all three. I think self-funded, you mentioned that self-funded is what I call the hard way, right? That's the difficult way. And I think, the way I might use a partner is kind of creating a bit of a separation and a surge capacity to have a team working on modernization in small chunks, right? If you're self-funded, what you're probably going to have to do is modernize it in small sections at a time because you're trying to split the same dollar, right? Multiple ways. And using a partner to do that, or you can use a partner to run the core while, maybe I want my team members learning the modernization side, right? Kind of how do you choose to split the work? I think strategic investment is awesome. I think my request to, partners is I have a lot of those conversations. It's challenging to kind of play all the way through. And so I think we've got to kind of figure out what is that shared benefit, like what's the win-win. I used to be in the digital P&L side, and so we did talk about some of those revenue sharing models, or kind of a percent. Like if we work on modernizing a software product together, right? What's the kind of financial structure of that? If I'm doing it on the IT side, right? I think it's a signal in our partnership together and kind of having go forward business together. So I love it when partners bring. I often say, like, bring me options, right? Bring me your ideas and let's sit and map them out. Because I do think it's a great way to take advantage of the innovation kind of teams that companies like Tech M probably have, I might not know about. The last thing I would say is you definitely have to have some proof points. I think I love and hate POCs. I love them and I hate them. I think I struggle with them because they are often kind of a flash and then they don't go anywhere, or we never take the POC all the way through. That's what I find difficult. But I do think the reason we go to them is to prove it out together. I another place that's really great to work with partners is build the evidence that modernization will solve the problem we're trying to solve. And so I just having help doing that while your team's doing the day-to-day is another great way to work together.
No, very interesting again, Laura, and the point about POC. See, a lot of conversation today in the industry is all about these Gen AI POCs, right? There is so much noise that lot of organizations, it is coming to a POC. The POC is success, but after that, there is no scale that like the enterprise grade scaling is where everybody is kind of right now, and they are seeing that now it's like that next era when most organizations are trying to see how they can scale these initiatives. But your point around POC and sometimes they not seeing the light of at the end of the tunnel with really enterprise scale adoption, that is a true issue. So with that, I will come to a question which is to you, Rao, and specifically AWS known very well for some amazing principles and vision and about some of the cultural aspects of how things happen. Now, looking at the IT culture, right? Traditionally, as we all are speaking, that modernization competes to find its place between the run and Laura said growth and run, and somewhere in the middle there is modernization. Now there is a thought, and I have been talking about it a little bit as well with some of that, and Laura brought a very interesting point that like a continuous modernization in small chunks, right? Like where modernization becomes the way of life or culture in the IT teams, where they are slowly and steadily looking at, okay, this is an opportunity. I have to make this change to this application, but now I have an opportunity that while I make this change, I do it slightly differently. I make it a little bit more modern or whatever. So that whole cultural mindset, how do we build that within IT teams? What is your perspective around it, coming from AWS lens, in general, your own IT lens? How do you look at that whole cultural shift where modernization is not seen as pure play, a cost initiative, but a way of life in
Yeah.
IT?
Yeah, very good question. And I also would like to tie this back into what Shobna and Lara briefly answered in the previous questions. So one of the questions you asked to Shobna is about the metrics and cost versus the other metrics that we can measure, right? So Shobna aptly answered. I would typically group them into three categories of the metrics. One is the operational table stake metrics, which are non-functional, like the cost of running an application and others. Then ready for change group, which is basically what is the blast radius of change and how many test cases you have to run to change. The third is the business metrics, like what is the value of this application, what is net promoter score of this application, what is the revenue generation of this application. When you look at all these different subsections of the metrics, you actually tie it back saying that what is the must do and how do you tie it back to the business value. So once you kind of build that, you can build the story around every time you go to the business and make a case for modernizing something, you should be able to say, hey, this application takes n number of hours to make a small change. Now we are introducing a new thing, like how can we start not only delivering what business wants, can I also introduce some modernization so that I'm reducing some technical debt. I'm not eliminating it, but I'm getting to the North Star of where we need to go, right? I think that's how I kind of tie it back. But coming back to the question, I think this is another question, that similar question asked by Pradeep in the chat as well, Anjali. Yeah, modernization is a continuous process. It's not like a destination. Once you get there, you're done. It's not like that. You just have to continuously do it. And I'll tie this back to a proverb. Necessity is a mother of invention. So modernization also, you got to tie it back to that. Because if you really think about it, right, you can't just say that I need to go and modernize because of ABC reasons. And we have to tie it back to the business need. Then only you'll always get successful in terms of getting your application or a modernization initiative funded, right? I'll give you a classic example of what I have done in my due course of last 15 to 20 years. So I worked for a very large credit card organization, and around 15 years back, when everybody started going on the internet and making purchases, this is like point of sale application. And you earlier 15 plus years back, people used to go to shops and make all the purchases. Nobody used to buy online. Like till early 2000s, right? But as the people started moving away from the traditional purchases from brick and mortar stores to online, that kind of credit card fraud has changed dramatically, where from card present transactions where you can verify ID versus card not present transactions. The systems that we have built to catch that fraud is actually outdated. In order to catch new kind of fraud, I cannot go and make these changes to these COBOL applications on a daily basis, and the fraud is actually creeping up. So we went back and rethought about it. How do you change these statically coded the business rules to stop the fraud into a dynamic change using a business rules engine? We completely revamped that application on mainframe, by the way, that those 15 years back. And we actually able to reduce billions of dollars of a fraud with a dynamic business rules change without touching a COBOL line of code. That actually changed our ability to stop the fraud. That is an innovation and a modernization by itself. You are moving away from a static code into a business rules engine. But later, 5 to 10 years back, what we started seeing is these business rules, the fraudsters are figuring out a way to kind of game the system. And even the business rules might take 3 days, 4 days, or a week to change. And by the time fraud is already happened, and there's nothing we could do. Is there an ability to track that in a predictive fashion to identify a fraud in the transaction in the inline? We introduced the AI models. AI prediction models in the fraud. And we said, can this predict a fraud on top of the business rules so that we augment the decision-making fraud process of the business rules with AI prediction score. And we were able to catch the lot of fraud without a human touching and looking at that. And now we fast forward and we start deploying that into agentification on the cloud with various other innovation technologies to stop the fraud, right? So the way you have to think about it is how do you connect the business value into a technical data? If I go and tell my business that I have to go from COBOL to Java, they will not approve it. But if I say I have an ability to stop the fraud by going from a COBOL to a business rules engine, they will definitely fund it, but they see a return on investment. So you always tie the business need into a technical debt, and then and it continuously modernizing, right? When you get to a business rules, you didn't stop. You have to go on to the AI model, then AI model to agentification, and each case you have to prove it back to your business. What is this new addition returning on investment, so that you continuously evolve your application? So that's how I kind of move forward with the business. Yeah.
Oh, very interesting, Rao. And that was exactly like those step changes. Not modernization need not be like it is a continuous journey. It's a continuous journey. You start, you keep moving along with the emerging tech along, and what the core is to align it with the business value and the business agility and the business benefit. Very interesting perspective, Rao. I'm also conscious of the time. So the last question that is there on the panel questions, and then I know there are a lot of questions coming on the chat, so I'll let Rohit moderate those. But Greg, the question is for you. So basically, again, we spoke about the AI, Gen AI. There is lot of talks around self-healing, self-modernizing, adapting applications, this, that. There is talk about autonomous operations. There is talk about agentification and things like that. From you are also, while you are serving a lot of customers, you are also continuously developing your own software, right? The one of the software that we also use at Tech Mahindra, the CAS software. So what do you see as a roadmap, and like how do you see this whole era of autonomous operations, agentic development, self-healing, self-adapting applications becoming mainstream? Like really, there is a lot being, again, I don't want to make anyone feel that things are not moving. There is a lot being done in that space, but we are yet to see with a lot of enterprises, our customers, that this whole concept becoming mainstream, where everybody is using assisted development, autonomous operations, things like that. So what do you see? What is your perspective around that? Because that's an interesting topic we also keep discussing.
Yeah, so there's a lot of uncertainty about what comes next. And that's why it's helpful to look at what we're confident is not going to change. So first, almost going back to the last question, modernization as a concept or a practice, that's not going anywhere. We've been doing it for decades, even before we were calling it modernization. You know, decades ago, we were doing things like adding distributed technologies to mainframe applications. We didn't necessarily call it modernization, but that's essentially what we were doing, right? And more recently, we were transforming applications, maybe as part of a migration to the cloud, or modernizing a monolithic system by breaking it down and leveraging microservices. Now we're modernizing systems by trying to incorporate AI into that. What are we going to do in the future? I'm not exactly sure. Maybe it'll be quantum computing, nanotechnology, who knows? But I'm pretty sure that modernization as a practice is not going to ever end, and it's always going to need us to have accurate understanding of our software in order to modernize with confidence. So that's number one. So number two, what does that mean? Well, agentic AI is going to need a map of complex software systems to be agile and self-heal and self-modernize with speed and accuracy. I already kind of talked about that using that example I gave earlier. But the third piece that I'm confident is not going to change and is going to be, and this is really important, and that's the data underpinning large software landscapes is going to need to be AI ready. And many organizations are struggling with this today while trying to adopt AI, making their data AI ready, not just the software or the application, but the underpinning data. Now, this alone, making data AI ready, this could take a lot of organizations years, maybe the next 3 years. But the work being done today by organizations that are taking a lead in mapping their software, making their data AI ready, in my opinion, they're the ones that are going to be leading the way in autonomous operations 3 years from now.
No, that is absolutely very interesting. You changed the question, and the way you answered that, what is not going to change versus what is going to change. I think that's the right way. Yeah, because the unknown is left to be unknown, which is very interesting. So no, with that, I think my questions from my perspective to the panel, maybe because I'm left with 2-3 minutes. That question on culture is something that I wanted to go around the table. I know Rao answered it in that around that. How do we bring it as a continuous modernization type of culture? Shobhana, any perspective you have on that particular point specifically, that how you are kind of motivating your teams to do things in those small bits wherever they can, and always wear that lens of emerging tech helping them modernize rather than thinking of it as a separate project initiative of modernization?
Well, anytime you touch culture, I'm going to start with saying it is difficult because there are two extremes. You either see people get emotionally attached to what they have developed, and that's like the next best thing next to sliced bread, or it's the other way around. I'm going to run after every new shiny object. I'm going to bring in every new shiny technology. Well, it is difficult, and I read in the comments somebody pointed out that there should be an objective, completely separate team that continues to keep looking at what value or what's the technical debt an application is accumulating. There is no one right or wrong answer, I guess. There should be metrics in place. There should be objectivity in looking at what you built. And a little bit of push, and also a lot of support from leadership, some sort of a safety net where it's okay to experiment and fail. Not experimenting is not okay. There needs to be a lot of things in place for us to encourage a team to look at what they have built objectively and say that, all right, it is time for me to change. So my answer is yes, there is a culture component around it. And that's the incredibly difficult part to change. It's not lack of technology, it's people and culture.
Thank you. Thanks, Shobhana. Yes. Laura, any last few things from you before I hand over to Rohit to start getting into the Q&A?
Yeah, the phrase going through my mind when you talk about culture, I just keep thinking, like, we have to make tech debt fun, which I don't know. I kind of think that way, but I think you do have to help your team. I'll focus on like team and talent. I think you have to really assess, do you have the talent, right? Who has the appetite and the energy to do it? If you have people in your team who've been there 10 or 15 years and they're working on the tool they built, are they going to be able to see its flaws, right? You might have to hire in people, right, who have seen a different way. That's tough. It's really tough as a leader. I think you have to gamify, incentivize. I love the example earlier about helping your engineers understand when you're making a change, don't just look past the bad code you notice over there. Fix it. Like you're right there. Just fix it. And you have to, create some of those behaviors, whether it's having the right leader of those teams or hiring in the people or really working on that mindset shift. That to me helps make tech debt just part of the way we work.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Laura. And Rohit, I'll hand over to you now. I know there are a lot of questions. We won't have time. I would suggest please spend 10 minutes, pick up some 4-5 questions or whatever you can. And then we leave at least 2-3 minutes for the closing remarks as well. So
Right, Anjali. So we have received quite a few questions. We'll now open the floor for a quick Q&A round. So the first question is for Shobna. So Shobna, earlier you had talked about time to market, opportunity cost, and cost of change for modernization business case. You also mentioned about uptime being mandatory for mission critical application. Question is, what are some of the new ways organization can measure the true business value of modernization, especially in terms of agility and customer experience?
That's a good question. Well, we spoke about agility quite a bit, right? It is how quickly can you respond to a customer request, or when you released a new feature to a pilot customer or whoever, if the customer wants something different, how quickly can you pivot, right? Those are agility metrics. It's just a metric of time. How quickly can you respond? User experience gets a little tricky. Of course, we all have this net promoter score metrics and things that we constantly do. That could be used as one of the metrics. I would say adoption of new functionality of your customer base could be a very good metric of how well you know your customers. Again, I'm a big fan of observability. If you could observe how your customers are using your existing features, new features, and how quickly can you adapt your experience. It could be something as, if there is a problem, if I pick up my phone and call a service technician, what does that experience look like? Is there self-service? So measuring the time it takes for the customer to accomplish anything in your system or in your service, and consistently trying to make that better would be a good metric.
Thanks, Shobna. Thanks for sharing your valuable insights. Next question is on stability and innovation, and it is for you, Laura. The question is, for many enterprises, modernization initiatives often face resistance due to existing technical debt or fear of disruption. How can organizations strike the right balance between maintaining stability and driving innovation at speed?
There's a really interesting question. It's actually literally picturing a project in my career where we had a go, no go. IT believed we were a go and the business believed we were a no go over this exact thing. And those are tough meetings. And I remember what I told my team is like, this problem did not appear yesterday. This problem's roots grew 9 months ago. And I was new to the team, right? And so it's a great It's a great point, and it's often based on, anytime you're talking about, you hear the words fear, concern, confidence, lack of confidence. Those are the things that are going to send your go, no go decision right down in the basement. And so you have to have a set of facts, probably before you start that project around what you're trying to achieve. And then as you go through it, really revisiting those metrics. And it's so important. And I'll just leave you with one little formula that I took from a training that I was in once. It was Q plus C, Q plus C equals A. And it was the quality of what the technology team produces, plus the change management that gets done, equals the adoption that you're going to get. And so, and the point was, you cannot get 100% adoption just by providing perfect software. You have to have the change management. And so I don't have a magic wand for you, but I would just say put a lot of work into your business alignment so that you get your Q and your C and you get your A, and have your metrics and your facts. Those are super important to really getting through those debates and those fears.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks for sharing that formula with us. Next question, I would pick on artificial intelligence, and it is for you, Greg. The question is that with AI increasingly becoming part of software engineering and operation, do you think AI will help reduce technical debt or create a new kind of AI debt? How can enterprise stay ahead of that?
Yeah, it's a good question. And to answer that, I could also answer another question that I saw in the chat at the same time. So the reality is, obviously tech debt is nothing new. The tech debt that's being, created up until recently has been created by humans. AI is not really much different. AI generated code is gonna have tech debt in it, just like human generated code. The issue is that the AI generated code in some cases is being created at such an alarmingly higher pace. There's the potential that it could create tech debt at a much more alarmingly higher pace, making it incredibly hard to get ahead of it. So I do agree with the fact that the AI has the potential to exacerbate our tech debt problem. But not all is lost. The story is not completely bleak. As I shared in that example earlier during the conversation, there are technologies and practices that we can use to not only understand the tech debt that's being generated, but also remediate it using AI, right? So that's kind of an interesting circular point there. And there was another question in the thread that I think is related to this. Someone was asking how much of this massive amount of tech debt that we've been talking about is bad tech debt, as I was calling it. And what's my opinion on that? Well, luckily, I don't have to use my own opinion on that because there's been really good research done on this, and there is a specific number. And I'll even drop the research into the chat here after this answer, but it's 8%. 8% of tech debt is what we would consider bad tech debt. What does that mean more concretely? The research that I'm referring to basically shows that 90% of critical production issues is caused by just 8% of the flaws in the code. That's your bad tech debt. And again, the trick is, how do you identify and pinpoint just that 8% that you want to focus on? Because we know we're not going to tackle 100% of it. So anyway, hopefully that helps answer the question, and I will drop a link to the study in the chat for those that are interested.
It does, Greg, definitely. Thank you for sharing your insights. Probably I'll, just being a little conscious of time, I'll park the last question for Rao, and it is on tech debt, Rao. So the question is that from your experience, how much of tech debt are organizations simply migrating to cloud? Or do you see organization using this movement to cloud as an opportunity to get rid of tech debt?
It depends. It is not black and white answer. So it all depends on what is your cloud migration objectives, right? So if your cloud migration objectives is you have made a decision to shut down your DC in next 9 months or a year and you want to move to cloud, the chance of getting rid of all the technical debt is impossible because you have a deadline and you have to get out of it. So you always adapt with lift and shift. And then once you get on the cloud, you start thinking about how to get rid of the tech debt, right? So it all depends on what are your business and technical objectives to modernize and migrate to the cloud. If it is all operational cost related to reduce, exit the data centers to cloud to reduce your cost and TCO, you probably won't do all the technical debt day one, and you'll take time to incrementally do that. But if your goal of modernization and migrating to the cloud is innovation and agility and all of that, you probably will be thinking about how to get there, whether you modernize first and get there rather than bringing all your technical debt. It's like garbage in, garbage out, right? And even getting to the cloud, your agility will still be the same because you haven't changed your application, you haven't decomposed your application, you haven't changed the velocity of how you modernize your applications. So unfortunately there is no black and white, it depends, and it all depends on what's your business outcomes and technology objectives, timelines, and amount of time and amount of investments you are doing into the cloud migration. So that's how I take that up. Yep.
Thanks, Rao. So, just being a little conscious of time, we just have 3 minutes left. So, Anjali, over to you for closing remarks.
I just wanted to check if Rohit is still there. I know he towards the end of the conversation he had some conflict, so I'm not sure, Rohit, if you are there. But
Yeah, I'm there, Anjali, but no, thanks. I just wanted to listen into all the views, so I kind of stayed back. But yeah, please go ahead if you want to close the session.
No, thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, Rohit, for setting the stage. Thanks, Shobana, Laura, Rao, and Greg. Amazing conversation, very interesting perspectives. I'm sure everybody who has been on this conversation, they have gained definitely some very valuable insights in the way organizations and teams and industry leaders are thinking about modernization. I gained a lot of insights. So thank you so much for that. I think I know there are a lot of questions to all the participants who have put questions, but their questions could not come in the panel conversation. Please rest assured, we will pick up the questions. We'll share it if you have asked to a specific panelist, and we'll try to gather their view and share it back as a Q&A document or something. So thanks everyone for your time. We are closing right on time, I believe, Rohit, which is good. So thanks, Shobana. Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Greg and Rao. And thank you, everyone, for joining this session. Thank you.